now you've had another big break, which is the banks and the credit unions have said it's time. It is time to wrap this up. We have been helping out our customers. We've been doing the right thing while the government's doing the wrong thing. We have been good to our customers, which, good for them for having some good customer service and actually being loyal to their customers. But you know what? That can only go on for so long. We got to get this done because they've been giving people delays. They've been giving people advances. They've been working a lot. Like Jordan said, if you log into your bank account, largely you have seen some sort of, if this affects you, we're here to help.
Just like if there's a storm. And so I think what the banks are saying is, we are helping, but at a point, our help becomes difficult for our bottom line because, it's one thing to cover a couple weeks of payments, a month of payments, but then if we're going to look into 2 months of payments, then it starts affecting not just the people who need the help from the bank, but everyone who utilizes the bank. And you don't want a banking crisis on top of it.
So the American Bankers Association, which is kind of the lobby association for the banking industry, they both have big banks and small banks, but they cover about 95% of all banks in the U.S. are members of this association. And they are putting out a statement now today that echoes very much what we saw from the Federal Workers Employee Union yesterday, which calls for a clean, continuing resolution and to resolve their policy differences when the government is open and functioning. So now you're starting to see pressure from two powerful groups, both the Federal Employees Union that we talked about yesterday, and now the banking industry. Because when you also start to think about the pressure that can get put on these banks, they are helping individuals at this time. But if it keeps going on and people can't pay their bills, that could start to spark a different kind of financial crisis.
I don't know how the banks actually work and the way money is moved around. It's not necessarily as clean as most people probably think. Just your money's not sitting in a vault somewhere ready to go. However, the way they invest, the way they work, of course, they have some pause to where they can help you out, just like they've done during some of the times of economic issues.
I think what it says is we can have a discussion about the size of our government. But when our private banks step up and do the right thing, which is a great thing about America, I think, in our companies.
They'll do it.
Capitalism. They'll do it, but they will say, hey, guess what? We can't do this forever.
Another important point to showcase here is that this isn't just like Wells Fargo or Bank of America making an independent statement. It's the lobby.
Right,
and the two
industry.
Things that we've been calling out is one of the big things is, Congress is still getting paid during all this. But what's interesting is when you have a large union that represents federal workers that is very large. Not only is it a lot of these members of Congress constituents, but the unions end up making financial contributions to members of Congress in different races, as well as this is the lobby for the banks. So it represents the interest of all of those big banks and little banks across the board. If they start getting pushback where then some of these members of Congress who sometimes only are worried about a 2-year cycle or a 6-year cycle of getting reelected, and then they're concerned about getting campaign contributions because they held up this government being open, that starts to speak a little differently. And you even hear it from the number 2 leader in the Senate. This is Dick Durbin, who is retiring from his Senate career, however, still has a lot of power right now.
And can speak his mind because of that.
And this is what he said to Politico about the union statement yesterday. It said, the Politico writes, the union's plea forced many Democratic lawmakers into a defensive crouch. Their number 2 Senate leader said it would be subject of internal conversations this week with bipartisan talks all but ground to a halt. Quote, it has a lot of impact. They've been our friends, and that Democrats take them seriously, talking about the Federal Workers Union that we talked about yesterday. So even these public statements is starting to show a different side of the leadership of the Democrat Party in the Senate, even as on this 28th day of shutdown, the Senate is currently voting for. The vote should be over soon. We'll know. It's expected to fail. But today, right now, they are voting for the 13th time to pass the very same clean resolution that the union for the workers and this bank lobby is calling for Congress to pass to end this shutdown. So it hasn't necessarily changed it yet, but you're already starting to hear different talk from the leadership on the Democrat side, which could really start to change.
13th attempt, and the vote just failed. So that's what according. I mean, that is getting to the point of it's almost.
Did it fail by the exact same number? Like, did any movement changes?
We'll find out.
I just like to see like.
Because as of right now, there were 3 Democrats. It was Senator Cortez Masto, Senator John Fetterman, and Angus King from Maine, who's an independent but caucuses with the Democrats, were the only 3 that were voting with Republicans to move it forward.
But a great name.
Was Rand
Angus
Paul
King.
still voting no, or did
The
he switch
latest
to yes?
vote I saw was unanimous from Republicans,
he's
and that's where they only needed 5 Democrats to move this forward.
So we'll look at that and see if there's anybody. Certainly, with this pressure, I would imagine they could go back to the drawing board and say, I don't know if we can survive this another week. Because interesting with this shutdown is Donald Trump has continued to do his work around the world, peacemaking around the world, going nonstop, and they're in Washington, and it's their fault that people aren't getting paid.
I want to get your take on this strategically for the Democrats. I know you don't want to give them any tips here because of what's going on, but you have some interesting moves here because on November 1st is what the Democrats were originally trying to hold out for.
Yes,
because that's when open enrollment for the Obamacare program comes up. They were hoping that Americans that saw a different price, they would be upset, and then that would give them more pressure on the Republicans to make a deal. You also have those elections coming up. The New York mayoral race, you have the governor of Virginia race, and the governor of New Jersey also coming up in the next week. Do you think that we're already starting to hear some change in tune from people like Dick Durbin? Do you think that the Democrats need to wait until like Wednesday of next week to show they didn't cave before pivotal elections as well as that one benchmark? Or do you think this could be done as soon as this week?
I think it depends on what the polls are showing in those pivotal elections, too. Is this really helping those candidates at all? Or is it hurting those candidates, or is it a nothing? Is it just, or could it actually depress the vote where it may be hard to poll, but people won't be as excited about those elections? Because it looks like, hey, putting more Democrats in to work with this administration right now, or this Congress, or running my state or city, doesn't seem like it's going to be a great decision for me. So is it worth waiting in line on these off-year elections and getting out the vote? The other risk they're taking is that the insurance market's open and they're not double. They are taking a chance that and again, this privatized market. And they oversell how many people are in that. Most people do not get their insurance through the Affordable Care Act.
No, right. Most people are still from their employer.
It's either their employer or through the Medicaid program, which is run and administered by your state.